very specific. But I think it just highlights it. I think it just raised the stakes, that the politics were also oppressive, the community in which Miriam lived was further oppressive. So it made those decisions that she had to make a little more difficult, a little more dramatic.
And did you have a lot of backstory that you could study up for the women that lived there at that time?
Well, the book was great because the book certainly gives you so much story and narrative and description to kind of go from. But really, the research is just doing the research, and that time, the apartheid, and reading about it from the books and people who write about it to nowadays you could just go online and read more testimonials than you even want to because you want to kill yourself after you read them. And then when we were down there, it's still quite present. There's a lot of pain in everyday life for everyone who lives there. And from our crew to everyone that I met, people that I passed on the street, hearing their stories and seeing everything that they've been through from every injustice feeds into you. And it's quite easy to become as aghast to it as Amina was at the time, because it's really absurd on so many levels to be basic about it.
Well, what were some of the challenges of recreating that time period on a low-budget film?
Well, it was a huge challenge because people always tell you can't do a period drama on this kind of budget. Look, our key was, I think we had a great co-producer in Brigitte Oling in South Africa. And she found us an amazing production designer, Tanya Van Tonda, who was just breaking in to the industry, having had a good run. She was incredible about recreating that time and that place. And I had references of my own family's photos and pictures and things to go back to. The costume design I thought was great. They just worked incredibly hard. They were very passionate women who were the heads of these two departments particularly. And they put their heart and soul into getting stuff as cheaply as they could, sponsored wherever possible, donated, and still giving me the choices to say, what should Miriam's progression be as she, finds herself during the movie? Should we go slightly stronger colors? How would Amina's cafe look? What would her take be on how to decorate and these kinds of things? So we had all of that enriches the characters and the stories. Without having to sacrifice for the sake of budget. That was due purely to passion, and I think that was really the case with a lot of the women and people working on this film.
Were you able to get some of the locals in there as extras or actors?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we cast Lisa and Sheetal from obviously outside, but I think almost everybody else was South African. We had a couple of well-known actors from India who played Lisa's husband, your rival, I guess. And, Parveen Davas from Unseen Wedding. But the rest of the cast was South African.
Now, were there clothing or artifacts from your family that you were able to get and use in the film?
No, nobody had kept stuff that long, but we certainly recreated a lot of stuff. One issue that we had was with the South African police, because they play quite a role in the dramatic side of this movie, and they wouldn't give us their vehicles or uniforms to wear unless we changed the use of the word kafa in the movie, which is, I guess, equivalent to, can I say it?
The N-word. The
N-word.
Yeah.
In reference to black people, and I didn't want to change it because it was an everyday word at that time, so we went ahead without it. And again, costume production design, they came through. They sourced vehicles and costumes that were dead ringers for the police ones.
That's interesting. So the cops wouldn't have anything to do with it just because of that use of that word?
They were supportive in principle, but they wanted that change, and that smacked me of
censorship.
Censorship, exactly. So we were...
And it's an important thing when you're talking about that time, and you want to... I mean, that's what was happening.
Yes.
And it is taking place in 1952, and you have to say those words. I mean, as horrible as they are,
yes,
it wouldn't be authentic if you didn't realize what was really happening at the time.
It's a fine line in South Africa. There's a lot of, I don't say political correctness, but a lot of awareness now. So, for example, was it you? I can't remember. One of the actors asked the crew, "How do I say the word?"
No, yeah, I think I asked.
Yeah,
and
there was this dead silence because nobody from our crew wants to actually have to say it, to tell her how to say it.
So and I felt uncomfortable even saying it and asking, but I had to, and everyone did have that reaction.
But I felt it was important for the time.
Well,
it was a commonly used word.
When you were having a problem saying the word, I mean, were you familiar with the history of the word before coming onto the film?
as she's not saying it because she would never use it. My character uses it in a scene in reference to something that the cops always say. So I was
Kind of
mocking,
well,
I was mocking them.
No, I meant for you personally. I mean, did you know the history behind that word
Yes,
before
yes,
you
I
had to say it on the set?
It was more a pronunciation issue, and just to make sure that it was being, because it's an Afrikaans word.
Yeah, well, I asked that because a lot of people around here wouldn't know what that word meant
Yeah.
or the connotations
I
behind
had learned
it.
about it in the research that I was doing for that time, and I was learning about apartheid in the stories. That word came up everywhere. I mean, there's books with that title.
Yeah.
Which is, if you think about what the equivalent would be, that's what I'm finding in my research. That was what it was doing at that time.
Well, I was going to say, I know the word because of the power of one. I mean, when I saw that when I was a kid, and I
Sure.
remember that stuck out in me.
Right.
So that's,
Yeah.
I guess, kind of weird to
Yeah.
become familiar with it through a different movie. But I wondered, was it easier for you to pick up a lot of the supporting cast and use them for both movies? I mean, does that bring like more of a family structure to the film or more a comfortable setting to the film?
We didn't really cross over too much because
No.
for A Can't Think Straight being set in London, we used mainly British cast except for Mr. Sheetal. In fact, all British, I would say, based. So then it was a question of do we fly, any of these people down to South Africa? So it would have had to have been a perfect fit for that to happen.
I think Amber was probably the only one.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. So there was one role, the young lady who played Sheetal's sister in I Can't Think Straight, a very comic role, but a very, very talented young actress, Amber Riva, and 20 years old, amazing. And she came down and played Sheetal's grandmother
If you
in
can believe
flashbacks in the World Unseen.
Flashbacks, not
Where she had to be raped, beaten, and her child snatched from her within 3 minutes. And it was quite a traumatic role, but she did an amazing job.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll ask one more question, and then I think my time is up. I wanted to know, with the films are so different, do you feel that there is any underlying themes that sort of connect the two stories?
Yes, definitely. I think they are, as you say, completely different in feel, time, setting. But for me, the underlying theme that you could say to connect them is being true to yourself, I would say. I think very much about the fact that traditions, cultures, political restrictions, they're all parts of the worlds that we live in. But what's a good idea is to maybe look at them, see if they're working, and if they're not working, not to be afraid to push them and push boundaries. Because my underlying belief is that if you're not challenging yourself as a human being and moving forward all the time, then we're not going to progress as a race. So I think that kind of pushing is very important. And I think a lot of people just don't question. You kind of get brought up in certain boxes and constraints, and you never really question them. So if it will help that a little bit, that would make me very happy.